There's a specific kind of heartbreak that doesn't happen in the moment a promise is broken. It happens later. It happens 6 months later or 2 years later when you're standing in your kitchen or lying awake at 2 a.m. and it finally lands. Not just that they didn't do the thing they said, they were never the person they told you they were. And the ground shifts under you because it's not just the broken promise you're grieving, it's every moment you built on top of it, every choice you made because you believed them. Every place you softened or trusted or tied your wagon to theirs, you have to go back and look at all of it again, knowing what you know now. That's the quiet devastation of a broken promise. It doesn't just take the future you were promised, it rewrites the past you thought you had. And here's the part almost no one talks about. The deepest damage isn't even to your trust in them, it's to your trust in yourself. So today, it's just you and me, and we're going to sit with that gently. The promises other people break, the promises we break to ourselves, and how you rebuild the one thing all of it quietly erodes: self-trust. I'm really glad you're here. I'm Robin Quinn Keene, and this is The Liberated Life. Let me tell you where I'm coming from so you know you can trust me with this one. I've been a teacher for 30 years, and in that time I've spent thousands of hours with people up close over a long time, watching how they relate to each other and to themselves, what holds people together, and how it quietly comes apart. And I'll be honest with you, because this show is never about acting like I have it all figured out. I know this topic from the inside. I know what it is to believe someone's words about who they are and find out slowly and then all at once that the words were a picture of a person who didn't actually exist. I know the specific ache of realizing you saw it earlier than you let yourself admit. So this isn't theory for me today. It's tender. And if it's tender for you too, then we're exactly in the right place and you're in good hands. Let's start by naming it, because I think you already have someone or something in mind. There are two kinds of broken promises, and we're going to talk about both because they're more connected than they look. The first kind is the one we all think of, the promises that other people made to us. Sometimes it's small and clean. Someone says they'll do a thing and they don't. That stings, but it's survivable. But then there's the deeper version. It's when someone makes a promise not about what they'll do, but about who they are. I'm someone you can count on. I'll always be honest with you. I would never do that. Promises about their character, about the kind of person you're getting. And you believe them, and why wouldn't you? They said it with such certainty. Maybe they even believe it themselves. And then time passes, and the actions don't match the words. Not once. That's just being human. But again and again. A pattern. And one day you realize the person they promised to be and the person actually standing in front of you are two different people. And you've been in a relationship with a promise and not a person. Here's what I've come to understand about these promises. Often they aren't lies in the way we think of lies. Sometimes it's wishful thinking. They've described the person they wish they were. Sometimes it's ego. They needed you to see them in a certain way. And sometimes it's manipulation. They told you exactly what you wanted to hear because it got them what they wanted. But from where you're standing on the receiving end, the cause doesn't really matter. The impact is the same. You built a life on a promise, and the promise wasn't real. Now the second kind of broken promise, the quieter one. The one that does even more damage precisely because no one else is even in the room with you. The promises you make to yourself. This year, I'll finally set the boundary. I won't let myself be treated like this again. I'll speak up next time. I'll take care of myself first for once. And then you don't. You let it slide. You stay quiet. You abandon the boundary the second it gets uncomfortable. And a small part of you, some quiet watching part, makes a note. Both of these, the promises they break and the promises you break to yourself, they erode the exact same thing. And that thing is the foundation everything else in your life is built on. Your ability to trust yourself. So let's talk about what it actually costs you, because I don't think we're clear or maybe even honest about how expensive this is. When someone breaks a promise about who they are, the first thing that breaks isn't your trust in them. It's your trust in your own judgment. The question that haunts you at 2 a.m. isn't, how could they? It's, how did I not see it? How did I miss this? Can I even trust myself to read a person anymore? And that question is corrosive, because if you can't trust your own read on people, then you can't trust yourself in any relationship. So you start doing one of two things, and watch for which one is yours. Some of us clamp down. We get suspicious. We stopped trusting anyone because trusting was the thing that got us hurt. We build the walls high. We call it wisdom, but it's really a scar. And some of us do the opposite. We cling harder. We ignore the next set of red flags because facing them would mean admitting we were wrong again. So we override our own knowing one more time to keep the story intact. Both of those come from the same broken place. You stopped trusting yourself. And here's the piece I most need you to hear, because it's the hinge of this whole episode. The deepest wound to your self-trust usually doesn't come from the moment they lied. It comes from the moment you knew and didn't listen. Because most of the time, some quiet part of you saw it. There was a little flicker of, a small, inconvenient truth that flickered up, and you talked yourself out of it because you really wanted the version they promised, because it was easier, because naming it would have meant a hard conversation and maybe a hard ending, and you weren't ready. And naming it might kill the hope you had allowed to grow in you. So you overrode yourself. You chose their words over your own knowing. And that is where self-trust actually breaks. Not the moment they betrayed you, but when you betrayed yourself. When you set aside what you knew to be true to keep believing something you wanted to be true. That's a self-loop. A promise to yourself. I'll honor what I know. Quietly broken. And they add up. Every time you override your own knowing, some part of you learns, my instincts don't matter. My knowing doesn't count. I won't protect me. And you can only teach yourself that so many times before you stop trusting yourself entirely. Okay, I don't want to leave you here in the ache. Let's get clear, because clarity is where self-trust starts to come back. Here's a truth I'd stake my whole career on. Who someone is exactly what they repeatedly do. Not what they say they'll do, not who they promised to be, what they actually repeatedly do over time. Words are cheap and easy. Anyone can describe a beautiful version of themselves. The question is never, what did they promise? The question is, what is the pattern? And I know that's hard to hear because we don't want it to be true. We want to believe the words, especially when we love someone, especially when we've already built something with them. The more we've invested, the more we need the promise to be real, which is exactly why we stop watching the pattern. So let me give you the discernment I wish someone had handed me years ago. Believe patterns, not promises. Believe in what's happening right now, not in the potential you see. When someone tells you who they are, thank them and then watch. Give it time. Let their actions vote. A person's character isn't in their best speech. It's in what they do when it's inconvenient, when no one's watching, when honesty would cost them something. That's the real information. And when the words and the actions don't match, believe the actions every single time. The actions are who they are. The words are who they wish they were, or who they want you to think they are. Both of those are real in a way, but only one of them is going to show up in your actual life. Now, I'm not saying become cynical or jaded. I'm not saying trust no one. I'm saying let people earn your trust in the currency that actually counts, which is consistency over time, not the currency that's easy to counterfeit, which is a good promise. So how do we rebuild? Because self-trust isn't gone. It's just been shaken, and it can absolutely be rebuilt. Here's how, and it happens in two places. First, with the truth about what happened. Stop rewriting it kindly. When someone breaks a promise about who they are, we tend to soften it. Well, they didn't mean to, or it's complicated, or maybe I just expected too much. We do that to protect ourselves from the grief. But every time you soften a truth you know, you abandon yourself a little more. So name it plainly, even if it's only to yourself. They said they'd be honest. They weren't, repeatedly. That's who they've shown me they are. You don't need to be cruel about it. You just have to be honest, because you cannot rebuild trust in yourself on a foundation of stories you don't actually believe. And then grieve. Grieve the person you thought they were, the person that felt real to you, because losing them is a real loss, even if they never fully existed. Let yourself be sad about the future you built in your mind. That grief isn't weakness. It's you finally telling yourself the truth. And telling yourself the truth is the first promise you keep on the way back to trusting yourself. Second, rebuild it in the small daily promises to yourself. Here's the beautiful thing about self-trust. It's not built by never being fooled again. It's built by keeping faith with yourself, starting small. Every tiny promise you make to yourself and keep is a deposit. I said I'd go to bed by 10. I did. I said I'd take the walk. I took it. I said I'd stop explaining myself to someone who's made up their mind. And I stopped. It's the little things. But your nervous system is keeping a ledger, and every kept promise tells it, I can count on me. I show up for me. I don't abandon me. And the big one, the one that rebuilds self-trust faster than anything, honor your own knowing. The next time that little flicker comes, that quiet, that inconvenient truth, don't override it. Don't talk yourself out of it because you want the other version. Turn toward it, even just to say, I'm noticing this. I'm not going to pretend that I don't see it. You don't have to act on it dramatically or immediately. You just have to stop betraying it, because every time you honor your own knowing, you're keeping the most important promise there is. I will not abandon myself to keep someone else comfortable. And this is where the relationship and the self-trust meet, because rebuilt self-trust eventually asks something of you out loud. It asks for the honest conversation, asking someone directly for the truth and being willing to actually hear it, saying the thing you've been avoiding, ending the game instead of managing around it. Not because the conversation is easy, it is not, but because staying in a comfortable lie is a way of breaking a promise to yourself every single day. Because here's the truth I'd stake everything on. You cannot trust yourself and betray yourself at the same time. At some point, self-trust requires that your outside matches your inside, that you stop performing a piece that you are not feeling, that you say the true thing even if your voice shakes. Here's what I want to leave you with. If someone has broken a promise about who they are, I am so sorry. That is a real grief, and it's okay that it hurts. But please don't let the story become, I can't trust my own judgment. The better story, the truer story is, I'm learning to see patterns and believe them instead of promises. I'm learning to honor what I know to be true. And if the promises you've been breaking are the ones to yourself, start there. Start small. Keep a tiny promise to yourself today and then another, because self-trust isn't the absence of people who let you down. It's the presence of a self you refuse to abandon. The most important promise you will ever make is not to anyone else. It's the one you make to you. I'll listen to my own knowing. I will not betray myself to keep the peace. I will not betray myself to keep a story. I'll keep faith with me. Keep that one, even imperfectly, even a little bit at a time, and you can become unshakable. Not because no one can hurt you, but because no matter what anyone else does, you will never again be the one that abandons you. So this week, here's one assignment. Make one small promise to yourself and keep it. Just one. Prove it to yourself in your own body that you're someone you can count on. That's where it all begins. I'm Robin Quinn Keene. Conversation is the way forward, including the one with yourself. Go keep a promise to you this week, and I'll see you again next time.